Picture the projects. Some of hip-hop's most powerful expressions of struggle against grinding poverty and structural racism have taken place in the dilapidated hallways of public housing developments. But it wasn't always like this. When they were first built under Section 9 of the 1937 Housing Act, the rent cap of 30% of income, social services, and the right of residents to participate in management made these same developments highly desirable places to live. Housing authorities rejected applications from anyone who wasn't able to meet strict criteria. And in the New York City Housing Authority, the nation's first housing authority, New York's large Black and Puerto Rican populations were completely excluded from certain buildings. In fact, it wasn't until the 50s that activist pressure forced city governments to desegregate their public housing. In New York, large developments in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx allowed concentrations of upperly mobile working-class families to form. These tight-knit communities became epicenters of cultural innovation as Caribbean and Latin styles of music and dance met Black American art forms like R&B, soul, and funk. With a shortage of official clubs and theaters in neighborhoods like the Bronx, public spaces became venues for a new kind of performance. It was in the community room of a subsidized Mitchell Lama building that DJ Kool Herc famously looped breakbeats together in 1973. But the seismic movement he set off was being felt in the streets, parks, and schools across the city as b-boys and girls, graffiti artists, and MCs made their own contributions to what would later become known as hip-hop culture. The community centers and courtyards of public housing developments became central to its evolution by providing room for residents to experiment and share techniques and sound equipment. When the 1970s fiscal crisis hit, public services and buildings in neighborhoods like the Bronx were targeted for budget cuts by politicians pandering to the backlash of white anger following the gains of the civil rights movement. Nixon halted all new construction of public housing in 1972, and under the Reagan administration, HUD's budget was slashed by more than half. This lack of federal support devastated public housing. Just as employment dried up and the social safety net disappeared, the crack epidemic began raging through marginalized communities. Instead of reinvesting in their public infrastructure and economic well-being, the Clinton administration followed the lead of Bush and Reagan by introducing harsh sentencing requirements for using and selling crack cocaine, incarcerating disproportionate numbers of Black and Latino men, and further shredding the social fabric of these populations. Clinton also kept up the assault on Section 9 through the Hope 6 program, which provided grants for cities to demolish their public housing units without any requirement to replace them. By the late 80s and 90s, hip-hop had fully entered into the mainstream and exploded into countless subgenres, many of which challenged the establishment with increasing pessimism and political militancy. When housing authorities failed to fulfill Section 9's promise of economic stability and self-determination, these artists found other ways to thrive, often turning their genius into successful careers in the music industry and beyond. As hip-hop became a global phenomenon in the new millennium, Section 9 housing continued to face demolition and privatization through Obama-era programs like RAD and PACT. Today, pressure from cities and developers to replace truly affordable developments with market-rate housing has grown with exponential rise in value of the land on which they're built. But public housing residents are prepared to fight for our homes by lobbying Congress for reinvestment in Section 9, and allies are waking up to the way Section 9's guaranteed rent cap, eviction protection, and self-determination in the management have allowed working families to flourish economically and culturally. Hip-hop took the world by storm, and public housing residents have more to share.
We are the working class people, and New York City wouldn't survive without us. And so in order to preserve our homes, preserve our families, and preserve the networks of care that we've established throughout decades, because we know Section 9 is the most affordable housing. We know that it is our housing stability and security for people who can't afford mortgages. But if we're gonna have fair market rent, this is gonna be more than what mortgages are. This is not housing preservation. This is privatization, and we don't stand for it.